A little girl came running to the Hells Angels, crying and shouting, "They're beating my mom." The bikers were gathered outside Johnny's bar, their motorcycles lined up along the curb. It was a regular Tuesday afternoon meetup, nothing special planned. The girl couldn't have been more than 7 years old, her face streaked with tears, blonde hair tangled and messy. "Please help," she screamed again, grabbing onto the leather vest of the nearest biker, a man named Bull who stood 6'4" and weighed close to 300 pounds. "They're hurting her. You have to stop them." Bull looked down at the terrified child, then exchanged glances with his brothers. The entire group of 12 bikers turned their attention to the little girl. Her name was Emma, though they didn't know that yet. Her small hands were shaking as she pointed down the street toward an apartment complex 3 blocks away. "Who's beating your mama?" Bull asked, kneeling down to her level despite his massive frame. "Bad men," Emma sobbed. "2 of them. They came to our house. Mama told me to run and get help. She said, find someone strong." Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Ride for Justice. Snake, the club president, stepped forward. He was older than the others, maybe 55, with grey streaking through his beard. "How long ago did they start?" "Just now," Emma gasped between sobs. "Mama's boyfriend brought his friend. They were drinking. They started yelling, then hitting." The bikers didn't waste another second. Bull scooped Emma up and placed her on the back of Snake's motorcycle. "Hold on tight, sweetheart," Snake said. "Show us where." The engines roared to life simultaneously, a thunderous sound that made people on the street turn and stare. 12 motorcycles pulled out in formation, following Emma's pointing finger as she directed them through the neighborhood. The tears hadn't stopped, but there was hope in her eyes now. She'd found help, just like her mama had told her to. The apartment complex came into view. It was a rundown building with peeling paint and broken railings. Emma pointed to the second floor. "There, apartment 2C. They could hear the screaming before they even got off their bikes. The bikers dismounted in perfect synchronization. Bull was already halfway up the stairs before the others had their kickstands down. The screaming from apartment 2C was clearer now. A woman's voice, desperate and terrified, begging someone to stop. "Please, Derek. I'll get the money. Just stop." A male voice responded with laughter, followed by the sound of something crashing. Glass breaking, more screaming. Snake caught up with Bull at the door. "We do this clean," he said, his voice low but firm. "No more violence than necessary. We're here to stop it, not add to it." Bull nodded, then tested the doorknob. Locked. He didn't hesitate. One powerful kick, and the door frame splintered, the door swinging open to reveal the scene inside. The apartment was small and cluttered. In the living room, a woman, Emma's mother, Sarah, was crumpled on the floor, her face already swelling with bruises. Blood trickled from her split lip. Standing over her were 2 men in their 30s. The taller one, presumably Derek, had his fist raised, ready to strike again. His friend stood nearby, holding a beer bottle, laughing. Both men froze when they saw 12 leather-clad bikers filling the doorway. "What the hell?" Derek said, his bravado faltering. "This ain't your business." Snake walked in slowly, his boots heavy on the cheap linoleum. "That little girl outside made it our business. You're done here." The friend with the beer bottle tried to look tough. "You know who you're messing with. Derek's got connections. You're making a mistake." Bull moved faster than a man his size should be able to. He grabbed the friend by his collar and lifted him off the ground with one hand. "The only mistake here is yours. Hitting a woman while her daughter's in the apartment? You're lucky we got here before anything worse happened." Sarah looked up from the floor, confused and terrified. She didn't understand who these men were or why they were in her home. All she knew was that the beating had stopped. "Sarah." Snake knelt beside her, careful not to touch her without permission. "Your daughter Emma came to us. Asked for help. Can you stand?" Sarah nodded shakily. 2 of the bikers, Tiny and Wrench, helped her to her feet gently. She winced with each movement, clearly in pain. Derek backed toward the window, calculating his options. "Listen, man. We can work this out. I didn't mean—" "Save it," Snake interrupted. "You've got 2 choices. Option 1, you leave now, and you never come near Sarah or Emma again. Ever. Option 2, we call the police. They take statements, and you catch an assault charge. Maybe worse if they find out the kid witnessed it." The room fell silent, except for Sarah's labored breathing. Derek's face turned red with anger. but fear was winning the battle in his eyes. She owes me money. $3,000. I got her that job at the warehouse, and she promised. I never promised you anything. Sarah's voice cracked as she shouted. You said it was a loan with no strings. Then you started coming around, acting like I owed you more than money. Like I owed you me. Snake held up his hand, signaling for quiet. How much has she paid back? Nothing, Derek spat. Not one dime in 3 months. Sarah's tears flowed harder. Because you got me fired, you told my boss I was stealing. I've been looking for work every single day, but no one will hire me because of what you said. One of the younger bikers, a guy called Rookie, was keeping Emma in the hallway, shielding her from seeing inside. But she could hear everything, and she started crying again. Mama didn't steal nothing. She's good. Bull's jaw clenched. The story was getting clearer, and it wasn't pretty. Derek had positioned himself as a savior, loaned Sarah money when she was desperate, then systematically destroyed her ability to pay him back. Classic predator behavior. Wrench stepped forward. He was the club's treasurer, good with numbers and details. Let me get this straight. You loaned her $3,000, got her fired so she can't pay you back, and now you're beating her in front of her kid because she can't give you what you made impossible for her to have. Derek's friend finally spoke up, his voice shaky now that Bull had set him down. Derek, man, maybe we should just go. This is getting crazy. Shut up, Derek snapped. Then, to the bikers. The debt is real. She signed papers. I got proof. Show me, Snake said. Derek fumbled in his pocket and pulled out a crumpled paper. Snake took it, his expression darkening as he read. It wasn't just a loan agreement. It was written to include loans and services rendered if payment is not received within 90 days. The implications were clear and disgusting. This isn't legal, Snake said coldly. This is extortion. Attempted human trafficking, basically. You're not getting money. You're trying to own her. The other bikers moved closer, forming a tighter circle around Derek and his friend. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sarah sank into a chair, her head in her hands. I didn't know what I was signing. Emma needed medicine. She had pneumonia, and I didn't have insurance. He said it was just a formality, that I could pay him back whenever I could. I was stupid. So stupid. You weren't stupid, Tiny said gently. You were desperate. He took advantage. That's on him, not you. Snake folded the paper and put it in his vest pocket. Here's what's going to happen. This document doesn't exist anymore. The debt doesn't exist. You're going to walk out of here, and you're never going to contact Sarah or Emma again. Not a phone call, not a text, not a drive-by. Nothing. Derek laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. Or what? You gonna kill me? Go ahead. I got friends too. You touch me, and this whole club goes down. Bull stepped closer. We're not going to touch you. We don't need to. See, we know people too. People who'd be very interested in this little trafficking operation you got going. People who'd love to know you're targeting single mothers. That's the kind of story that makes careers for prosecutors. The blood drained from Derek's face. You're bluffing. Try us, Wrench said. Snake's brother is a defense attorney. He knows every prosecutor in the county. One phone call, and your life gets very complicated. This was actually true. Snake's younger brother had left the biker life years ago, gone to law school, and now ran a practice defending abuse victims. He'd helped the club navigate legal issues before, and he had connections everywhere. Derek's friend grabbed his arm. Man, let's just go. Seriously. This ain't worth it. For a long moment, Derek stood there, his fists clenched, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. Then slowly, he nodded. Fine. She's not worth the trouble anyway. Walk, Snake said, gesturing to the door. The two men moved toward the exit, but Snake blocked Derek's path one more time. I want to be crystal clear. If anything happens to Sarah or Emma, anything at all, we're going to assume it was you, and then the police will be the least of your problems. Understand? Derek didn't answer, just pushed past, and headed down the stairs. His friend followed, both of them practically running by the time they reached the parking lot. The bikers watched from the apartment window until Derek's truck pulled away and disappeared around the corner. Emma ran into the apartment and threw herself into her mother's arms. Mama! Are you okay? Sarah hugged her daughter tightly, ignoring the pain in her ribs. I'm okay, baby. I'm okay now. Snake turned to his crew. Rookie, Bull, stick around for a bit. Make sure those idiots don't come back. Rest of you, give them some space. Most of the bikers filed out quietly, but not before each one nodded to Sarah, acknowledging her without making her more uncomfortable. But they weren't done yet. Not even close. After the apartment cleared out, Sarah sat with Emma on the couch while Rookie and Bull kept watch by the window. Tiny had stayed behind too, pulling out a first aid kit from his saddlebag. He'd been a medic in the army before joining the club. "Let me look at those cuts," Tiny said gently. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. He worked carefully, cleaning the wounds on her face and checking her ribs. "Nothing broken, I think, but you should see a real doctor. That eye's going to swell shut if you don't get ice on it." Bull went to the kitchen and found a bag of frozen vegetables, wrapped it in a dish towel, and brought it to Sarah. She took it with a whispered thank you, pressing it against her swelling eye. Emma hadn't let go of her mother's hand. "Mama, are the bad men coming back?" "No, sweetie," Sarah said, though her voice wavered with uncertainty. Rookie spoke up from his spot by the window. "We're making sure of that kid. Your mom's safe now." Snake had been making phone calls in the hallway. Now he came back in, his expression serious, but not unkind. "Sarah, I talked to my brother, the lawyer I mentioned. He wants to file a restraining order against Derek first thing tomorrow morning. He's doing it for free, says it's the least he can do." Sarah's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I can't pay him. I can't pay any of you. I don't have anything." "Nobody's asking you to pay," Snake said firmly. "Emma did us a favor, actually, reminded us why we ride in the first place. We're not all saints, but we don't tolerate men who hit women and scare kids. That's the line." Bull crossed his arms. "Derek mentioned he got you fired from the warehouse." "Which warehouse?" "Patterson's, over on Industrial Drive," Sarah said. "I was only there 2 months, but I liked it. Then Derek told the owner I was stealing inventory. It wasn't true, but Mr. Patterson believed him because Derek used to work there too. They were friends." Snake and Bull exchanged looks. "Patterson's," Bull repeated. "I know that place. Owner's son rides with a club 2 counties over. We've done charity runs together. Maybe it's time for a conversation about what really happened." Sarah shook her head quickly. "No, please don't. I don't want more trouble. I'll find another job. I've been applying everywhere." "How long's your rent paid up?" Tiny asked, his medic instincts extending beyond just physical care. Sarah's face fell. "I'm 3 weeks behind. The landlord's been patient, but he said if I don't have something by Friday, he's starting eviction proceedings." The room went quiet. It was Tuesday. Friday was 3 days away. "How much?" Snake asked. "Don't," Sarah said quickly. "You've already done so much. I can't." "How much?" Snake repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. $1,200 for this month and last month's balance. It was a lot of money. The bikers looked at each other and something unspoken passed between them. Snake pulled out his phone again and stepped into the hallway. Through the thin walls, Sarah could hear him talking, his voice low and urgent. When he came back 5 minutes later, his expression had changed. There was determination there now, purpose. "How many people in your building?" Snake asked. Sarah looked confused. "Maybe 30 units. Why?" "Any of them in situations like yours? Single parents, struggling, people getting squeezed by bad circumstances." "A few," Sarah admitted. "Mrs. Chen downstairs, she's a widow trying to raise her grandson. And there's Marcus in 3B, he's disabled, can barely make rent most months." "Why are you asking?" Snake sat down across from her. "Because I just talked to the rest of the club. We do charity rides a few times a year, raise money for causes, help people out. But we've never done anything local, nothing in our own backyard. That's about to change." Bull grinned. "We're throwing a benefit. This weekend, big motorcycle rally, food, music. The works. All proceeds go to helping families in this building catch up on rent and expenses." Sarah's mouth fell open. "You can't do that. That's too much." "It's already happening," Rookie said from the window. "Snake just got off the phone with the owner of the lot by the fairgrounds. He's letting us use it for free. Said his sister was in an abusive relationship once, and bikers helped her get out. He owes us one, apparently." Tiny packed up his first aid kit. "We've got 3 days to pull this together. It'll be tight, but we've done harder things. Every club within 100 miles will show up if we call. We'll have 500 bikes there easy, maybe more." Emma's eyes went wide. 500 motorcycles. Bull laughed. Maybe more, little lady. When bikers hear about a good cause, especially one involving protecting families, they show up. It's what we do. Sarah was crying again, but these were different tears. I don't understand. Why would you do all this for me? For us? Snake leaned forward, his voice gentle. Because your daughter had the courage to run for help, instead of hiding. Because you tried to protect her, even when you were in danger. Because Derek and guys like him think they can get away with hurting people who can't fight back. And because sometimes the universe puts you in the right place at the right time to actually make a difference. This is our time. The other bikers nodded in agreement. This wasn't just about Sarah anymore. It had become something bigger, a statement that their community wouldn't tolerate predators, that people like Derek couldn't operate in the shadows, that families like Sarah and Emma's deserved protection and support. What do you need me to do? Sarah asked finally, her voice steadier now. Rest, Tiny said. Heal. Let us handle the heavy lifting this week. But come Saturday, we're going to need you there. We're going to need you to tell your story, not the details if you don't want, but just enough so people understand why we're doing this. Can you do that? Sarah looked at Emma, then back at the bikers. Yes, I can do that. Snake stood up. Good. Bull and Rookie are going to stay outside tonight, just in case Derek gets any stupid ideas. Tomorrow, we're taking you to meet my brother, get that restraining order filed. After that, we start planning the rally. As if on cue, the sound of more motorcycles rumbled outside. The rest of the club had returned, parking their bikes in a protective circle around the building. They were making a statement. This family was due their protection now. Sarah walked to the window and looked down at the gathering of bikers. Men and women in leather, covered in tattoos, riding machines that cost more than most people's cars. Society would look at them and see outlaws, troublemakers, people to avoid. But she saw saviors. She saw family. Thank you, she whispered, knowing they couldn't hear her but needing to say it anyway. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. The fairground lot had been transformed overnight. Banners hung everywhere. Family's first rally, ride for justice, community strong. Food trucks lined one side of the lot, their owners having donated their time and supplies. A stage had been set up where local bands would play throughout the day. And the motorcycles, they covered every available space. Snake had underestimated the turnout. By 10 a.m., there were over 700 bikes, with more arriving every minute. Riders from clubs across 3 states had shown up, word having spread through the biker community about what happened and why they were gathering. Sarah stood backstage, Emma holding her hand. The bruises on Sarah's face had faded to yellow and green, still visible but healing. She wore sunglasses to cover her eye, though everyone knew why they were there. Snake appeared beside them, his club colors freshly cleaned. You ready? I think so, Sarah said, though her voice trembled. What do I say? Just tell them the truth, your truth. These people came here to support you. They want to hear from you. The morning had already been incredible. Local news crews had shown up, drawn by the spectacle of hundreds of bikers gathering for charity. Donations had been pouring in. Cash, checks, online contributions through a hastily created website. They'd already surpassed their initial goal of $15,000 and were climbing toward $25,000. Snake took the stage first. Brothers and sisters, riders and friends, his voice boomed through the speakers. 3 days ago, a little girl ran up to us asking for help. Her mama was in trouble, and she knew that bikers are people who protect those who can't protect themselves. Today, we're here to prove her right. The crowd erupted in cheers, engines revving in approval. It was deafening and beautiful. I want you to meet someone, Snake continued. This is Sarah and her daughter Emma. Sarah, come on up. Sarah walked onto the stage, Emma beside her, and the crowd fell silent. 700 bikers and their supporters, all focused on one woman and her child. Sarah took the microphone with shaking hands. I don't really know what to say. 4 days ago, I thought my life was over. I was broke, I was being threatened, and I didn't see any way out. Then my daughter did the bravest thing I've ever seen. She ran for help, and these men, these bikers that society tells us to be afraid of, they saved us. Her voice grew stronger. They didn't just save us that day, they've given us hope. They've shown my daughter that there are good people in the world, that asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. They've proven that family isn't just blood, it's the people who show up when you need them most. Emma tugged on her mother's sleeve, and Sarah lowered the microphone to her. "Thank you for helping my mama," Emma said simply. "You're heroes." The crowd exploded with applause and engine revs. Sarah could see grown men wiping their eyes, tough-looking women nodding in approval. This was their community, and she and Emma were part of it now. The rally continued all day. Bands played, food was served, and the donation total kept climbing. By evening, they'd raised $37,000, enough to cover rent for every struggling family in Sarah's building for 3 months, with money left over for a community fund to help with emergencies. But more than the money, something else had happened. The community had come together. Sarah had met Mrs. Chen and Marcus, along with a dozen other neighbors she'd barely known before. They'd shared stories, offered support, and formed connections that would last long after this day ended. As the sun set and the rally wound down, Derek's truck drove slowly past the fairground entrance. He saw the crowd, the bikes, the banners, and most of all, he saw Sarah on that stage. Strong and supported. He kept driving and never came back. Snake found Sarah as people were packing up. "My brother got word today. Derek left town. Headed to Nevada, apparently. The restraining order still stands, but I don't think you'll need it." "And the warehouse?" Sarah asked. She'd been too afraid to hope. Snake grinned. "Funny thing about that. Patterson's son had a long talk with his father about believing lies over checking facts.
You start back Monday if you want the job."
Better pay this time too." They felt bad about what happened. Sarah couldn't speak. She just hugged Snake, then Bull, then every biker she could reach. Emma did the same, her small arms wrapping around leather vests and tattooed arms. "You're part of the family now," Snake said as they finally prepared to leave. "You need anything at all you call. We take care of our own." 3 months later, Sarah stood in her apartment. The same apartment, but different now. She'd been promoted at the warehouse. Emma was thriving in school, telling everyone about her biker family. The community fund had helped 4 more families avoid eviction, and the annual rally was already being planned for next year. On her refrigerator, held by a magnet, was a photo from that Saturday. Sarah and Emma surrounded by bikers, all of them smiling, all of them family. The little girl who ran to the Hells Angels had found more than help that day. She'd found proof that courage comes in unexpected forms, that community means showing up for strangers, and that the people society fears are sometimes the ones who save us. And every time Sarah looked at that photo, she remembered. Sometimes angels wear leather jackets and ride motorcycles, and that's exactly who you need when the world gets dark.